All right, this is my old house, my dad's old house, mine too. I'm Sam, not Sam Jr. I got my good friend and grandson Spencer helping film this walkthrough because the house is being sold outside the family for the first time. So I thought we'd take a little walkthrough and talk about some of the things. For example, right here, this used to be an outside porch, concrete porch, and then my dad built a section behind there, and it was still a porch, outside porch, and then he moved this out. He had a little desk over here, which I moved over to my house, and this was his little office, if you will. So, so that's the history on this little thing. We'll take a walk in here. This is the dining room, and we're just going to pass through into the living room here, and then we'll come back this way. This is the area my dad added, and it's got a flat roof above it, and they've had a number of leaks, so they've been working on that. This shelf here is, my Uncle Nick built this shelf, and if you go down to my cousin Kathy's on the corner down here, you walk in her house, she's got this same shelf that her dad built down there, so it's got a little piece of history there as well. My mom's favorite chair was right here. She just loved sitting in her chair right here, looking out the window, TV over there. This was the place. A couple interesting stories about here is when my grandma died, as I recall, my grandma Rose, they had the wake right here in the living room. At this time there was a wall here, and as I recall, I was just a couple of years old, but she was here and the people came up, and which was pretty common back then. They had, someone bring food, and they come and visit the family and such. When my grandpa died, he actually was in a funeral home, so that was some years later. Another interesting thing about this is my mom had a brain aneurysm in 1963, and when she came home from the hospital, they put her in a hospital bed right here in this corner, and the Christmas tree sat over there. Well, we go upstairs a little later to one of the bedrooms. On Christmas Eve, 1963, my brother and I woke up to the sound of a pumping truck, it sounded like. And then looking through the curtains, we saw it was kind of a red glow, so we moved that aside and looked over and saw the house that I live in, the Stradioti house, was on fire. And I looked out, and a fireman just chopped a hole in the roof, and flames came shooting out, and he just went sliding back down the ladder. So me and my brother come running down here to tell my mom about the fire. Of course, her and my dad were awake by then, and as we come running in here, hey, Mom, you look over the Christmas tree, and there was Santa's gifts under the tree. So it was like, whoa, the heck with the fire. Steve and I go, whoa, look at this, look at that. She says, no, you guys get back upstairs. And did you see him? Because we were pretty young. Did you see him? Did you see him? No, we didn't see nothing. We didn't hear nothing. So that's a little bit of history that goes on here. And we used to have these 12 days of Christmas things hanging up across this thing here. When we had relatives over, everybody had a part you had to sing, 5 golden rings everybody sang, but the other parts were all given to one of the relatives. So a lot of memories right in here. It used to be like a bookshelf right in here too. So, and there was actually a doorway that went into that, was a back room then. We'll take a walk through here. This is the dining room table. We had a lot of meals. My mom had, stuff set up over there, and then there was a desk there, and all her trinkets and things are up here. And we'd come home from outside, it'd be so cold. You come in and you just sit here by the heater, and then there used to be a cutout right here in the wall where the old desk phone sat on, the hardwired phones, landline, so you can still see where it was plugged in down here. So that's kind of what was in here. Let's go into the kitchen real quick. This whole thing has changed dramatically. The kitchen used to be a wall, and it continued on here, and then there was a doorway right about here that went into what we called the back room, along with that other door. And we had a piano in there, and we had a big round table and stuff. But my grandma Rose, she was back there in that bedroom, dying from cancer, and her brother, Tony, who lived next door, he'd come over and sit here in the kitchen and visit with her through this doorway, but he would never go in there and he would never look at her. So that was kind of an interesting little thing back then. He just couldn't stand to see her all, cancer sunken in and stuff like that. So this was always been like the kitchen table when we were growing up, right in here. This is all changed now. This is all the modern stuff. We did this so my mom, if she had to, could live on the first floor. Had a bathroom installed. We figured we could split the living room in half and give her a place to stay down there, so she wouldn't have to, go somewhere else to live. So that's kind of the stuff there. A lot of history going on here. A lot of spaghetti slinging and stuff, and the sink was over here, and there was a porch, unheated porch out here. We called the back porch, and out there we keep stuff like spaghetti, milk, anything that we wanted to keep cold or frozen, chunks of meat and stuff. And that was the way in and out. Now we've got the side door down here that we had to use, and me and my brother would go outside. My mom didn't want us coming back in, so she'd lock us out and just tell us, if you gotta go someplace to do your thing, go in the lilac bushes over here. So that was what it was back then. And this porch was added later. We didn't have this growing up out here. We had a ground patio out here. So let's move on. We'll hit the basement last before we leave. At one time they had tenants in the beginning, and I'm not sure the configuration here, but the tenants lived upstairs and my grandma and grandpa lived down here. And then, of course, when they started having kids, they had to get rid of the tenants because they needed the bedrooms and stuff. We used to take a lot of pictures on the stairs. I think everybody's family just gets on the stairs and snaps pictures. And we got quite a few of them that we took on here. And, I remember falling down these stairs a few times too. Not a pleasant thing. And I remember one time I got a new pair of skates, first pair of skates ever, and this was linoleum in here, and I put them on and started to walk across the linoleum, and can imagine what happened to the linoleum when I went across with my ice skates. My mom was not too happy. Now let's go upstairs here. This was a good spot here. My brother and I, when my mom didn't have parties that much, but when they did, we would sneak down here. Of course, we were smaller then, and we would peek around the corner and listen to them until they got wind of us, and then Mom would send us back upstairs and lock us in our room. Seems like she was always locking us somewhere. I believe this was the original flooring in this house. You can see how old it looks, the design and everything. But otherwise, the bathroom really hasn't changed much. Pretty small, but it's just the way it was. Shut that up. I'm going to go into the front. When I was growing up, there was a door here and a wall here, and there was a cabinets over there, and there was a plug-in through here for like an electric range or a refrigerator. And this used to be a kitchen. And I think when it was an apartment, I think even my mom and dad lived up here for a little bit. I'm not sure. So we'd go into the room here. So this was one big room, not walled off like we did now. And my brother Steve and I used to have this room. We used to have a double bed, right here, and dresser in the doorway and such. And then you had to go through our room to go into my parents' room. They always kept their door shut, so we never went in there. And there was actually a door here. This window was put in place of it, but you can kind of see there used to be a door here. Went out onto this porch outside. Yeah, me and my brother had that bed. Then we had bunk beds in there too. And they were, if I remember correctly, they were like over here. So, like this old door here was the door that used to be over there. This is a door from when I was growing up. When the door was over there, we used to have a babysitter, and we would, we'd have to take a nap. Me and my brother, we'd go upstairs and take a nap, pretend to take a nap, and she'd go downstairs, and she was a really heavy lady, and so my brother and I would unhook the door using a baseball card. You lift the hook up, and we'd go out, be playing around out there and stuff and making noise, and pretty soon she'd come lumbering back up the stairs, so we'd run back in the room, pick up the hook, put it back on again, hop in bed like we were sleeping, and she couldn't quite figure out what the heck was going on. She thought she was going a little bit crazy. Sometimes we weren't the nicest kids. So in here, now, they're still moving their stuff out, so, but this was my parents' room, always was, that I remember. The closet used to be over here. You can see where it used to be, and the doorway was here. And my mom's bed was like over here after they got separate beds. Before they just had one bed, and then my dad was there. And then my brother-in-law, Jerry, built these closets for them so they could have their own separate closets in here. And my dad was over there because my mom liked to leave this window open a little bit, even in the wintertime. Drove my dad crazy. Wasting fuel, you're wasting heat. Pick your battles. All right, we're going to go back out here. This is the quick tour. This is original floor too, from that I remember. There might have been floor before that. It might have just been wood, but this is old as you can tell by looking at it. And there used to be a bookcase right here. It's now in my house in the basement, and it was built by my Uncle Nick. And I remember one day my mom said to me, you should take that. I go, oh, geez, I don't have any room for that. She says, you should take that. Your Uncle Nick built that. So I took it, so now it's down in my basement down there. So that's a little history too. So around the corner, cabinets used to come out here, and the phone was mounted up here, and we would sit here and talk on the phone when we became teenagers, until somebody got on the phone downstairs and told us to get off. This is another interesting room. This one was my sister's, and again, original floor from that I remember as a kid. Kind of an interesting little room. Closets, like for skinny people only. Got all these shelves here. This bottom shelf goes all the way over to the bottom of the stairs. And when my cousins would come over, we'd come up here and play hide and seek. You crawl in the bottom there and put some stuff in front of you. And then you just lay there in the dust and played hide and seek with all the cousins. Interesting little configuration. I don't know why they didn't make it a little wider, but I think they built like this to hold the floor upstairs and stuff, so in the attic. Oh. See, here's the window where my brother and I had bunk beds. This is the window we looked out, and with the roof, the peak of the roof right there, that was the end of the house, and the fireman had a ladder leaning against it, and he came out and chopped a hole in that part of the roof. And when he did, the flames came shooting out, and he just slid down the ladder like sailors do sometimes. They just hang on the side and just slide down because it came like right up in its face. All right, now we go to my favorite room in the whole house. Always was. The attic space. Yeah, this is it. This was my world up here for much of my teenage years and stuff. My brother and I shared it for a while when my younger brothers took over the room down there. And then my brother Steve moved from this room into the room across over there, and we'll go over there in just a minute. So I cut out these speakers, these holes in the wall all around here, 4 of them, put these speakers in, and I hooked up a 8-track back then to a battery charger so I could get the DC. And I used to play music up here, and there's just like big speakers because there's nothing behind these walls. I don't know when my parents let me do that. Then I had posters and stuff all over the place in here, and I'd sit here, and this was a newer window. The older window was, I don't recall it being quite so low, but it might have been. And I could sit here and look out over the neighborhood. These trees were smaller, and do my homework and have my little AM, FM radio, transistor radio, and sometimes just dream. Or you could look the other way towards the railroad tracks and watch the trains come running down here. So that's the other part of staying up here, and you can see where Spirit Mountain is over there. I put this up right here. Oh, yeah, this room's got a lot of memories. A little bit of a teeny closet. Again, people are just moving out of here. This closet hasn't changed. You can hang stuff there and hang stuff here. This was added, I think when my sister might have been up here. Yeah, a lot of good times. Even on the back of the door, I used to have posters and stuff. And everywhere, the whole room was like postered. And this was open. It was storage. They've closed it in, but that was open. My dad built this room. There's storage behind there, but now it's all sheetrocked in. I imagine they insulated the whole thing. And my dad put all this stuff up. And my brother Steve's bed was right over here. And then later on, when we had moved out, we'd come back and we'd have to put tomatoes up here and let them ripen on some boards up here. So that was our job, to come up and get the rotten tomatoes, put them in a bucket, throw it in the garden, and then pick the other ripe ones and get them downstairs for processing. So yeah, so this is another room with a lot of memories. See someone else putting posters and stuff up here. Whoever's had this room since. Yeah, this old colored piece has been here for before my time. So yeah, if I ever had bought in this house, I probably would have used this as my study, put like a day bed in there and hang out. Well, time goes on. I think this was the frame my dad had that covered this up in the wintertime after we moved out. And back behind here, this has always been here. Just wanted to get an interesting shot of this. This vinyl right here, this piece of linoleum, that's really old. That was there when my dad probably was a young kid. It's pretty ancient, pretty Italian looking. Oh, that's what's up here. I'm going to go back down here. We're not very tall, but you can see as you get to be my height, if you didn't duck, you crack your head. A lot of my friends, when they'd come to visit, would crack their heads on there. All right, here we go down. Basement. Final room. I don't know if I'll turn a light on down here. This used to be vinyl that was in, I don't know, I think it was in the kitchen at one time. You can see how thick these walls are. You know, you got your wall out here. That's probably 4 to 6 inches. You got this thickness. This is the basement wall, how thick they are. It's made of bluestone. Turn a couple lights on here. Well, so this old military desk, my dad would, he had it actually over here. He had another one here, or he had that one here, one or the other, and then he would, this was his office down here too. He spent a lot of time down here. And then this used to have a wall across here. And that side of it was the coal bin, because they used to have a big, huge furnace over there to burn coal. You could see the opening for the chute. So the coal truck would drive up, he'd open up that chute on the outside, put his little funnel down there, and just deliver how many tons of coal you had ordered into here. And then there was a door over there, and this, like I say, this wall here. And my dad told me when they were growing up, they had shelves here, and they'd put their canned goods and stuff up on the shelves on this side. You can see some of these stones here are not painted, because these are kind of ornate stones my dad picked up in the Dakotas and Wyoming, Montana, when he was going to school. And you see another one up here. And he had to do some patching, so he put those in there. Same over here. You see the same thing. That's his little touch. Yeah. He told me that under these stairs they used to put sand, and in the sand they used to keep like carrots and potatoes and stuff underneath there. So, and when he was a young kid. You can see these posts, how nice and still solid. These are another one over there, so it holds up to the house. And they added a couple of jack posts here as well. Now, over here was with a big furnace. Had the heating chamber, and then around it had sheet metal and the big ductworks. It looked like a big octopus, so we call it the octopus. And that sat right in this spot, took up a huge spot in the basement here. Then my dad converted it to oil tank still sitting in the corner. And then my cousin bought the house, she converted it to gasoline, or to gasoline. Yeah, boom, that'd been nice. And this door I got to kind of shut right now, but this was the door that went outside. I could probably even open it still. And to haul stuff in and out, and when my brother and I had a band down here, we would practice, and then we'd haul our band stuff in and out of here. And even sometimes when we'd play hockey and stuff in the wintertime, we'd come back in this way, but not too often. Usually in the wintertime, we just kept this shut and came down the other way. But I still remember hauling our band stuff in and out of here. You know, let me see if I can get it shut here again. Yikes. Lock that up. Oh. So let's take a walk. Watch out for this stuff. The back of when they put the bathtub up by the kitchen, they had to shore up the wall because of the weight when you put all the water in it. So they had to build this little wall here. But there was a big freezer here. I mean a big one. It was probably that big. And they would buy like half of a cow with my Uncle Nick on the corner, and from the grocery store in the corner. And he'd cut it up and butcher it and package it all, and gave half of it to my Uncle Nick and half to us, and fill this thing up and plus everything else that they could put in there. My dad used to buy milk cheap in the cities and drive it up when he'd come home, and it'd be frozen. He'd stick it in the freezer down here, and it wasn't very good. It was pretty watered by the time. My mom had to buy instant milk and add it to it so it would taste a little better. So that's what. And then we moved it over there. When we come down and get the ice cream, I get by the bottom of the stairs over there, and I'd send my brother to go get it, and then I'd turn the lights off. And he'd be screaming and hollering, and I go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just leaned against it. I'm sorry about that." And he fell for that quite a bit until he was getting a little too strong. I decided, I better quit picking on him a little bit. But I used to pick on him a little. That's what you do with younger brothers. It's just tradition. So that's what all this is. This is the bathroom my dad built down here. The lights don't work in there, I don't think, but when he was fixing the old toilet was in there, the tank was on the wall, and he'd take the basin off. And there was a bathtub, and I was sitting on the bathtub right in the back by the lever, and I said to him, "How can you keep the water from coming out of there?" And he says, "Well, it's fine as long as you don't flush it." And I don't know, I think the devil made me do it. So my dad's in Leland down there working. I reach over, I flush the toilet, it comes gushing out right in his face. He's yelling, I get scared, I go running out of here. I go back, climb this big tree. I was a little kid, so I could climb further than my dad. And not by much, a few feet. So he got back down and was yelling at me to get down and said, "No, you're going to hit me." He says, "No, I'm not going to hit you." And so finally I relented and came down, and swat, he hits me. He said, "What the heck do you think you're doing there?" And my dad never swore. It was interesting. I mean, he had reason to, but he didn't swear. But he'd yell at you and tell you did wrong. That's for sure. So, so that was an interesting story on that plumbing thing there. One of my favorite stories. My dad, even though he swatted me in the head, I guess I had it coming. So we'll walk back over here. This was I built these shelves one day when my dad was away because he worked out of town, so he was only home on the weekend. So I built this shelf so we could, with some scrap wood, put canned goods and stuff on it. So I couldn't wait for him to get home. When he got home, I said, I got to show you this. I got to show you the shelves I built. So I come down and show him the shelves, and I don't know how old I was, maybe, 12, 14, something like that, I don't know. And I show him the shelves, and I go, "What do you think?" He goes, "You should have painted them." And that was it. Nothing else, nothing like nice shelves or anything. I was kind of crushed at the time, but knowing my dad, that's just kind of the way he was, you know. So, and he probably was right. I probably should have painted. It would have been easier to paint it when I put it together then, but you can see it's still not painted. So, fond memories of all that stuff. You can see all the wiring my dad did. I've learned a lot of wiring from my dad. You can see he kind of knew what he was doing when he put stuff together. Oh, well, this is kind of the quick walkthrough. Our band used to practice over there or over here. We'd practice all over. We'd have, you know, kids come and sit on the stairs over there and listen to us practice, and kind of like our groupies at the time, girlfriends and neighborhood kids and stuff, and so my parents had to put up with a lot of that noise going on, and then my brothers had bands too and stuff. So it was quite a gathering place for the neighborhood. You know, one thing about memories, they last a long time with you, even after things change and things change hands. So that's probably the end of my tour. It's not everything, but it's enough. So let's head back out with my photographer. Oh, I gotta turn the lights off too, that'd be nice. All right. Yeah, so a lot of conversations around the table here. The little blue Formica top, I think it is, table we had as kids, I have in my basement now. And it had a little drawer in it, silverware drawer, but we didn't keep silverware in there. And when there was food I didn't like, I always wanted to sit by the drawer, because then I would scrape it off my plate, put it in the drawer, made it look like I ate it. And then I would, after everybody left, I'd take it out and throw it in the garbage can. Good thing I liked a lot of food, so I didn't throw much away. But there were things that I just didn't want to eat. And my dad, after my mom died, you know, he liked to just sit here and just look out at the woods and the hillside and stuff. Because when he was younger, he was actually born in this house. And when he was younger, where all the trees are out there, beyond the old railroad bed, they used to have gardens all the way along there. That was all cleared. And so they worked all those gardens, and there were gardens down across the street, and they had gardens next door here, and back where the garage is actually used to be the barn. And they had a cow and chickens and a few things back in there. And that got tore down. You know, I was just a pretty young kid. My sister and I used to have a playpen. I think it was a chicken coop on this side of it. I've got some pictures of it where I think my mom put us in there so she could do stuff, and we were kind of locked in and couldn't get in any trouble or wander away. So there you have it, my friends. I'll be sharing this with my siblings, and it's a little bit of history, and time moves on. I guess I'm done.